the lithium that is in your PS4 or PS5 controller that is actually mined through slave labor so that you can be able to play your video games. Like, how would you feel if you knew that? Because then you would automatically start being with, well, wait, we should not be over there, destabilizing these governments so that we can have cheap lithium, right? We should not have cheap cobalt and cheap coltan that goes into our phones so that we can have these modern conveniences. In fact, then why aren't we paying these people a decent livable wage in order to be able to mine these resources? But then it goes into, well, why is all this money going to the top people instead of actually going towards the workers? Because then you start thinking about, well, if the money starts going to all the workers instead of the people at the top, then why not the workers actually own the means of production so that they can actually have all the resources to themselves? The resources being not just the minerals, but also the land, as well as the produce and the food. Then you start advocating for socialism in these other countries, which is something that the people at the top really don't want, because then that means that you don't have a lopsided government. You don't have a lopsided system. That's basically what it's about. That's basically ultimately where it goes. And the problem is that it all starts with your heartstrings being pulled because you're seeing little kids getting their fingers bloody because they have to mine for coltan in places in Africa. And so right now you also have another conflict that's going on in the DRC, Democratic Republic of Congo, where you have a paramilitary group that is really embroiled in committing atrocities and war crimes within Congo. That's going on right now too. So let me just share with you guys with this. It's a lot, guys. It's a lot. So let me share this with you guys. So this is what's going on in Congo.
Here's what's happening in the Democratic Republic of Congo while the world looks away. Thousands have been killed and more than 500,000 displaced as a Rwandan-backed rebel group called the M23 sweeps through the east of the country. They're fighting Congolese government forces, but as they advance, they're killing, raping, and mutilating civilians, even children. A lot of countries have told Rwanda to stop backing the M23 rebels, but the UK hasn't. Analysts have suggested that Britain's holding back on criticising Rwanda because of the deal where the UK would send asylum seekers there for processing. While the politicians argue, civilians continue to be killed.
As a Black American that comes from descendants of enslaved Africans, I acknowledge what's going on in Congo, to me, fits with a lot of the hubris of how individuals start during chattel slavery. Because though we all enjoy, you feel me, the things they put in their blood, sweat, and tears in to make sure that we're able to get this old cobalt, a lot of us are able to turn our ears and our eyes away from what's going on because, hey, they ain't nothing about business. You see what I'm saying? There were a lot of individuals during chattel slavery that enjoyed cotton, enjoyed tea, enjoyed sugar in their everyday lives. You see what I'm saying? But when it came to the individuals that was putting blood, sweat, and tears into, plowing, fielding, making sure they're getting those elements, making sure they're getting those resources, they was able to turn a blind eye to it. You don't care about it. You feel me? What's happening in the Congo right now? It sounds very familiar. A Western entity coming to fund bloodshed and displace the indigenous population in order to steal resources and forward its own interests. Familiar, right? Congo is currently going through a silent holocaust. Millions of people are being killed so that the Western world can continue to benefit from its natural resources. Congo has the world's largest reserve of coltan. Coltan is a critical mineral needed for electronic devices, aerospace, and innovation of technology. When you start to romanticize the advancements of technology and how technological dependent our society goes on, recognize that has different impacts based off of where you at and how you position in terms of how you get to enjoy that, or how your body is exploited and dehumanized to employ it. You know what I'm saying? Western countries, the same little old group, United States, UK, France, etc., have been providing financial and military aid to Uganda and Rwanda to invade regions filled with coltan reserves. As they invade, millions of people are killed. Over 6 million have been killed, half of which are children.
It's in your phone. It's in your laptop, which I'm on right now. It's in your tablet. There is indirectly blood in our hands. And it's all because they want the mining of different resources, whether it's cobalt or coltan, two different, minerals that are used in our everyday products that we use, phones, tablets, laptops, etc. And I'll get into more of what's involved with it, but that's what's going on. And ultimately, it's always about keeping the area destabilized so that they can keep the resources going. And I have somebody who explains this perfectly, so we'll get into that in a second.
The device I'm recording this video on literally is what's used to make sure these Congolese children and women and men are being brutalized, being funded by the US, UK, and France for natural resources. But I know we usually turn a blind eye because, hey, man, those Africans are going to fight. Those Africans are going to war. Of course, Africa is war spread. 2 + 2 is 4. The sky is blue, and Africans fight and kill each other. How do you think we got you? An African sold you into slavery, head ass. Like, I recognize the rhetoric, you know what I mean? The narrative, the mindset that we're supposed to been indoctrinated for when it comes to recognizing what happened in Africa and what's happening in the Middle East. But I think that it is not ironic that Palestine, the Congo, it's all in the same region. You see what I'm saying? Like these places ain't far from each other at all. Think about that, man. Free Congo, obviously.
So let me share this with you guys. So this was a video. Says what's driving Democratic Republic Congo's deadly conflict with M23. So they go into who's M23, and M23 is basically a paramilitary group that's supported by Rwanda. Well, Rwanda denies their involvement, but there's actually been solid evidence that M23 and Rwanda security forces are all embroiled with one another. And who is also backing Rwanda? United States. So this is just really ultimately about resources, of course. So, but the gentleman here actually talks about the purposes of the tactics that M23 uses. So let's go.
Soldiers of the neighboring countries. Testimonies are there, but for now, evidence shows that Rwanda is the one backing the M23 movement. But when it comes to other neighboring countries, the Congolese government hasn't said it clearly.
Okay. All right. So on YouTube, just some thoughts here from our viewers. Areta says Rwanda and the DRC, domestic matter, but the bigger picture and the root cause is about their rich minerals. Is this about money? Kambale.
It is about resources, and that's been the history of the Congo since its mother they found in 1885 when King Leopold got control of the DRC.
Oh, you're taking us way back.
It was actually for rubber that was used for the car, the tires of our cars and bicycles, right? We go to 1945.
Hang on. Let's stop there for a second. King Leopold. Leopold was a horrible, horrible person. Hitler-level maniac. 10 million Congolese murdered. 10 million. By the way, people like Leopold of Belgium, they sell chocolate hands in Belgium because when they chopped off the hands of African people because they failed to meet their quota, Belgian people said, oh, let's make chocolate hands so that we can eat the hands. So that's what they did. So Leopold was wicked guy.
Without Congo's uranium, you couldn't have Hiroshima and Nagasaki. That was under Belgian hands.
So let's go back. What do you say?
Bigger picture and the root cause is about their rich minerals. Is this about money, Kambale?
It is about resources, and that's been the history of the Congo since its mother they found in 1885 when King Leopold got control of the DRC.
Oh, you're taking us way back.
It was actually for rubber that was used for the car, the tires of our cars and bicycles, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the rubber that we use, cars, bicycles, right? Now he's getting into the uranium and said we would not have a Hiroshima or a Nagasaki without Congo because of their uranium. That's crazy.
We go to 1945. Without Congo's uranium, you couldn't have Hiroshima and Nagasaki. That was under Belgian hands. Today, from 96 to present, Congo's minerals has been at the center of modern day technology. You won't have your cell phone, your laptops, and so on without Congo's minerals. But what's important to see, and to connect it back to what has happened in Kishishe, is that the crimes in Kishishe is not the first time it happens. It has happened for 2 decades. In 1998, massacres documented by UN group of experts, Roberto Garreton, where 200,000 civilians presumably were killed or disappeared. Happened.
So naively, if you're going to list atrocities for us, why kill civilians?
This is very important. So I want you guys to pay attention to this because they're like, and think about Palestine, right? Think about Palestine. Think about Sudan. Think about here in Congo. So let's keep all these countries and territories in mind.
The tactic of displacement. Whenever you are massacring civilians in public, raping women in public, those things are to terrorize the population. When it happens in your community, tomorrow you are not going to be in the same area because you are afraid. We have mass displacement, over 5 million in some estimates, from 2 to 5 million internally displaced Congolese. But after a few days, few months, a few years, you are seeing development of mining concessions in those areas.
Oh, because you clear the people out?
Not only mining concessions, you also have dispossession of land where population are taking over the land. But
so scare them enough so that they leave their land. Scare them enough and they will run. If you have people, particularly a lot of women, that are afraid of being sexually assaulted within an area, they're not going to be there. Guess who's going to follow? Men, right? On top of it, if people are afraid of being shot, if they're afraid of being bombed and shelled, then they're going to leave a given area. This is the point, because if they don't have that land, and if that land has resources, and if they're gone, guess who gets to scoop up that land? Why you think 7,000 Palestinians have been killed? Why you think we're seeing what's going on right now in Congo? This stuff isn't a coincidence. This all has to do with imperialism. This all has to do with colonialism. This all has to do with capitalism. What's going on is they want the land. They don't want to do the work of saying, okay, we're going to pay people a living wage. You know, we're going to have people work for us in order to extract these resources at a, you know, from a dignified wage and things like that. We're not going to do that. What we're going to do is we're going to use the military industrial complex or use somebody else's military in order to destabilize the region so that they can leave, so that we can just swipe it up. And so if I want your house, All I got to do is terrify you so that you end up leaving. And then your house is vacant. I can just take it. It is extraction by means of terrorism with state sponsorship.
For that to end, and that's where, at least for Sarah, where we are standing is, until there is justice, there cannot be peace. So we are signing peace agreement with people who committed a crime yesterday. CNDP massacred civilians in Kiwanja, raped women in Kiwanja in 2008. It's not surprising to me, CNDP, which is now called M23, to rape women in Kishishe. They've done that before. But what has happened around accountability? And the agreement that they signed in 2008 gave them amnesty. And that's why also some of the implementation of agreement becomes a problem. How do you give a rebel leader, a battalion, amnesty for raping women? How do you implement that, right? So that becomes a much more complex. But we don't believe that just dealing with the M23 is the solution. It has to be dealt with at the regional level, with Rwanda and Uganda. In 2012, the stopping of M23 was through diplomatic measure. What actually happened? The United States withheld aid to Rwanda. That was a diplomatic measure. In 2013, we saw the M23 disappear pretty much by saying that they're going to cease fire. A decade later, they are coming back. But the same measure taken in 2012 is not what's happening now. There seems to be some form of fatigue around diplomacy.
Kambali, so take a pause for a moment. A couple of things that I want to share with you. Colin, you go first.
So that's the role of destabilization in a given area. It's theft. Scare you, right? So let me share this as well, because I love TikTok. They're the best because they share with a lot of news that's not really being reported on. You're not going to see a lot of this in corporate media. But yeah, this is what's going on. So let's take a look at this.
If you're watching this video from your phone, your iPad, or any electronic device, then I urge you to keep watching. And this is because while our phones and computers and other electronic devices are truly remarkable, if you look inside of them, you will find blood. There's blood inside most of these devices because most of our phones contain a mineral called coltan.
To learn more about coltan, the precious metal at the heart of every mobile, you must go to the Congo, 1,400 kilometers from the capital Kinshasa, near the Rwandan border in South Kivu. This region is a geological miracle stuffed full of minerals, and it's ravaged by war. 4 million people have died in the past 13 years. The violence feeds off the abundance of natural resources.
Congo is currently experiencing what many describe as the silent Holocaust, and millions of people have been unalived, including women and children, just so that the Western world can profit off of its natural resources. Approximately 80% of the world's supply of coltan comes from Congo. Because of this, multinational companies are enslaving people in Congo.
The places where this ore is found are often occupied by foreigners, and the mineral is a form of currency. There are two aspects to the problem: the political side and the economic side. The political side is the fact that there are always foreigners on Congolese soil. They should leave this land and return home. But in the meantime, they're stealing from the Congolese. The foreigners are getting rich, but not the ordinary Congolese.
So ultimately, if you keep the land destabilized, and then it's harder for them to find work, it's harder for them to make enough in order to live. And then you have these multinational corporations that come in, and then they do employ some of the people who are Congolese, but they will pay them starvation wages in order to mine these areas so that they can make a huge amount of money off of it while not paying these people barely anything. So then guess what? Then they are making huge profits off of the backs of Congolese people. And so it's essentially slave labor that's going on there. And so the people are in a desperate situation. It's hoodifying, if I can make that into a word. It's hoodifying Congo. So that it's so bad that it's like, well, I have no choice. I have to do slave labor. I have no choice. I have to, put my blood, sweat, and tears into mining for these companies so that we can at least live. It sucks, man, what these corporations are doing.
Western countries, such as the US, UK, and France, have been providing financial and military aid to Uganda and Rwanda to invade regions filled with Coltan reserves. And as they invade, millions of people are unalived. Aside from the millions of people who have lost their lives, half of which are children, 48 women are essayed every single hour.
The workers are adolescents who slave like convicts. This is Coltan, the black gold of the Congo. Pieces of rock attached to limestone. Do you know what coltan is used for? No, we don't really know. We know it's a mineral. Every able-bodied young person in the village must dig the mountain. They have no choice. The mine is the only way to earn a living. How old are you? 15. Some are just young children.
When people say child labor built your phone or your tablet, they're not lying. This is why capitalism needs to end, because it's literally exploiting children in order for us to have convenience. God damn.
As in a gold mine, the earth is washed several times. The impurities are washed away, leaving grey sand dotted with little black pebbles. This is the coltan that the armed groups want so much. Not long ago, they came to get it with weapons, as Anatol, the village headman, remembers.
For those of you who've watched this far, thank you so much for watching. Make sure you comment, like, and share this video so that other people can also.
So that's what's going on. And it's always leads back to resources. Always remember who gains, who benefits, and why they're out there. Oh, I already showed this. Okay. Let me share this as well. So this is important because I want people to know that it's not just Palestine that's suffering. Yes, keep talking about what's going on in Palestine. Also, we need to start talking about what's going on in places like Sudan and in Congo.
We need to talk about what's going on in Congo right now, something people have started to call the silent genocide. Millions of people in Congo are unalived, so other countries, and especially Western countries like France, the UK, or the US, can profit off of their natural resources, specifically coltan, which is a critical mineral used in a lot of technological devices. Western nations have allowed and funded militia groups in Rwanda and Uganda to invade Congo, and especially those coltan reserves. Men, women, and children are being enslaved so they can mine coltan and give it to those Western nations, which can be super dangerous, by the way, because they're not properly trained to do so. They don't have the equipment that is needed to do this safely. It is estimated that almost 50 women an hour are SA'd, and that in total there have been around 6 million victims, half of which have been children. Congolese people being exploited for coltan has been an ongoing issue for years now. And here and there you will see a small article about what is going on, but then it's already dismissed again. Even now, the story has only been picked up again because of activists who have been putting in the work to make sure people know about this, not because of Western media outlets. They're definitely not going to talk about it. They're too busy supporting the ethnic cleansing of another group of people they have helped to oppress for over 70 plus years. And this is exactly what I mean, because if you Google it, you will see, small media outlets talking about it here and there, mentioning that it's exploitation, that people are suffering, but there isn't an in-depth expose by a big media outlet. This one is actually funny to me. Why it's hard for Congo's coltan miners to abide by the law? Maybe because a lot of them are enslaved and there is no law protecting them?
Interesting how a lot of the corporate media is not talking about this, and one of the reasons why is because they won't want people's heartstrings to be tugged, because if they see that you got little kids mining for the stuff that's inside your phone, then maybe, just maybe, they would actually want to do what's going on, like what's going on for Palestine right now, where you have people that are boycotting Starbucks and McDonald's, and it's causing McDonald's and Starbucks is causing their stocks to tank, because a lot of people are saying no to these corporations. Well, what if people just stop buying new phones, and what if they stop buying new tablets and stuff like that, and they started actually boycotting some of these companies? Well, then maybe, just maybe, then they would actually suffer financially. But they don't want to do that, because the thing is that if you do that, then they won't be able to put as much money at the top. The thing is that what's going on is that you don't want people to realize that actual people are suffering just to make the things that are part of our modern conveniences. And this is the part where capitalism comes into play. A lot of times people don't want it. If you keep, it's an out of sight, out of mind type of concept, right? The people who are suffering the most, you keep them out of sight, out of mind, and say, hey, your products just magically came here. Like, for instance, the lithium that is in your PS4 or PS5 controller that is actually mined through slave labor so that you can be able to play your video games. Like, how would you feel if you knew that? Because then you would automatically start being with, well, wait, we should not be over there, destabilizing these governments so that we can have cheap lithium, right? We should not have cheap cobalt and cheap coltan that goes into our phones so that we can have these modern conveniences. In fact, then why aren't we paying these people a decent livable wage in order to be able to mine these resources? But then it goes into, well, why is all this money going to the top people instead of actually going towards the workers? Because then you start thinking about, well, if the money starts going to all the workers instead of the people at the top, then why not the workers actually own the means of production so that they can actually have all the resources to themselves? The resources being not just the minerals, but also the land, as well as the produce and the food. Then you start advocating for socialism in these other countries, which is something that the people at the top really don't want, because then that means that you don't have a lopsided government. You don't have a lopsided system. That's basically what it's about. That's basically ultimately where it goes. And the problem is that it all starts with your heartstrings being pulled because you're seeing little kids getting their fingers bloody because they have to mine for coltan in places in Africa. It all comes together. It all comes together. It's basically what it is. Because, like Zombie in the Air says, let's remember that the main beneficiary is corporate profits. Why are people being sexually assaulted in these countries? Corporate profits. Why are people dying while on the job? Corporate profits. Why are bombs going off on civilians and being shelled? Corporate profits. It all goes back to corporate profits no matter what. Why do you have a phone as cheap as it is? Corporate profits. Because ultimately, yeah, it's more affordable for you, right? But at the same time, they're able to keep it that cheap because, well, corporate profits. Because they're not paying these people a living wage. But if they did, that means that these things would be more expensive. But then you wouldn't be able to buy it unless they paid you a living wage. But if they paid you a living wage, then whose money would actually go down? Somebody's money got to go down. And the thing is that it's not ours that goes down, it's the people at the top that goes down because they're the ones who are raking in the most of the profits. Roger Meadow says JB hemp could be used to make all those components, especially batteries. You don't have to do this. Invest in hemp, but they're here, but cooperatives it and entire supply chain. While I agree, the problem is that these corporations do not want us to know that, and they don't want us to do that because if there's something that's plentiful, that means that the scarcity goes away. And if the scarcity goes away, well, guess what? If it's not scarce, then you can't make as much money off of it. This is why diamonds are artificially scarce. Diamonds are actually very plentiful. They're not worth as much as people think they are. It's just they're made artificially scarce. Check on the beers, right? Thank you for bringing that out, Roger. I appreciate it. Let's finish this up.
The only way we can change anything here is if we spread awareness and start talking about this for real. Because that is our only power as normal people, average people, to put pressure on these industries that are, enabling this type of behavior. And that is the only time Western nations will ever care about what they are doing in developing nations, when people are starting to point their fingers at them and it's getting, global traction. These people do not deserve to be overlooked simply because they're not important enough of a country to, Western media. We are all entitled to human rights, people in these types of countries as well, even though Western nations like to ignore that. They deserve their freedom and they deserve their justice.
Free Uganda. I'm sorry. Well, yeah, free Uganda too, but free Congo. So this says apparently Rwanda, with the assistance of Uganda, UK, and USA, murdering Congolese people for their mining using the M23 rebels. Over 6 million people have been murdered, half that are children. Women are sexually assaulted daily. So this is a mining operation. All these people are in the mines mining for these multinational corporations. So as you can see, this is capitalism. That's basically what it is. People put their lives at risk. A mineral that we use in our mobile devices. So Coltan. Coltan is short for columbite tantalites. It is known industrially as tantalite. Is a dull black metallic ore from which the elements niobium and tantalum are extracted. The niobium dominant mineral in coltan is columbite, after niobium's original name. Okay. Production and supply, approximately 71% of the global tantalum supply in 2008 was newly mined, 20% was from recycling, and the remainder was from tin slag in inventory. So tantalum minerals are mined in the Democratic Republic of Congo, like we were just talking about, Colombia, Rwanda, Australia, Brazil, China, Ethiopia, and Mozambique. Tantalum is also produced in Thailand and Malaysia as a byproduct of tin mining and smelting. Potential future mines in descending order of magnitude are being explored in Egypt, Greenland, China, Australia, Finland, Canada, Nigeria, and Brazil. So most of it is out of Congo. Let me share this as well. So this is from the University of Waterloo. It says Coltan. Let me see. Let me enlarge this. Gosh. Okay, so Coltan's uses is used in many electronics today around the world due to its unique electrical properties. The two main products. I think that's a typo. The two main products include cell phones and laptops, though it is found in other electronics as well. So 80% is in the DRC, Democratic Republic of Congo, Western Australia, Canada, Brazil, China, Ethiopia, Mozambique. Coltan is produced in Thailand and Malaysia as byproduct of tin mining and smelting. It says approximately 80% of the world's supply of coltan is found in the Democratic Republic of Congo. Coltan is mined by hand. Their methods are very similar to how gold was mined in California during the 1800s. Groups of men dig basins and streams by scraping off the surface of mud to get the coltan below. Then they slough the water around in large tubs, allowing the coltan ore to settle to the bottom due to its heavy weight. Miners invade and damage or even destroy forested areas in search of coltan. The area where coltan is mined also contains national parks such as Kahuzi-Biega National Park, home of the mountain gorilla. In this park alone, the gorilla population has been cut nearly in half. As well, poverty is caused by the displacement of local human populations by the miners and has led to the gorillas being killed for their meat. Wiping out species as well. And so that is what's going on there. What's going on in Congo, as well as in Sudan, is just, it's horrible, man. And just keep your thoughts with Congo, Sudan, as well as with Palestine, because all these things are connected, right? Remember, it all goes back to resources. Let me share this just to remind you guys. What's going on in Palestine? Resources, land. Remember this? It says the unrealized potential of Palestinian oil and gas reserves. There's oil and gas reserves in Palestine. That's another reason why the displacement of the Palestinian people. What's going on in this displacement of people in places like, DRC? Well, they have coltan and cobalt reserves. mining that they want to do there, that they want to get to ultimately, and they're using these militias in order to displace and move people out and scare them out of their land. And what's going on in Sudan, as well as between the Sudanese armed forces and the rapid support forces, the two groups that are going against each other, well, they're embroiled in a power battle. And those two power battles that are going on right now are making it so that, because they're fighting for this power on either side, it has put the Sudanese people in the middle, and, hundreds of thousands are being, killed, and millions are being displaced because of this battle that's being embroiled in that area, because it's so strategic to the Horn of Africa, which has a lot of resources and also has strategic economic routes versus, with the Indian Ocean, as well as with the Red Sea. So it all comes down to economics, really. And so the people who want dominance over that region, particularly, you have the United States on one side and Russia on the other, that want to keep their influence in the region. So this is what's going on. And who is this to a detriment to? It's to the detriment of the people. So keep them in your minds whenever you think about it.